The attorney watched me carefully while I unfolded the letter. I recognized my grandmother's handwriting immediately. It was neat, steady, confident. The first line made my chest tighten. If you're reading this, then your parents chose Ethan over you one last time. I had to stop for a second. The room suddenly felt smaller. I looked up at the attorney. You knew? He nodded slowly. I hoped she was wrong. I looked back down. I loved both of my grandchildren, but only one of them loved me without expecting something in return. Tears blurred my vision. Grandma wasn't talking about money. She was talking about the hundreds of small moments nobody else noticed. The grocery trips, the doctor's appointments, the evenings I spent fixing things around her house, the birthday dinners that Ethan skipped because he was too busy. I never kept score. She had. The letter continued. For the last 5 years of my life, Ethan only visited when he needed money. Your parents knew. They always made excuses for him. I swallowed hard. It hurt because it was true. Not once had they asked Ethan to change. They simply expected everyone else to accept him exactly as he was. Then I reached the next paragraph. My heart almost stopped. 6 months before I passed away, I transferred ownership of my house into a family trust. I looked at the attorney. I thought my parents inherited the house. They thought that too, he answered quietly. So who owns it? He slid another folder across the desk. You do. I stared at him. No. Your grandmother made you the trustee. I blinked several times. I don't understand. He smiled gently. That means the trust follows your instructions. I looked back at the papers. Grandma had signed everything months before her death. Legally, properly, witnessed. Nothing had been left to chance. So why haven't my parents been told? The attorney leaned back. Because your grandmother added one condition. He turned another page. The trust cannot be activated until 30 days after probate, and only after you personally accept the position by signing one document. One signature. Suddenly, the title of Grandma's letter made sense. My signature wasn't just paperwork. It controlled everything. The house, her savings, several investments, even the small lake cabin where our family had spent every summer. Without my signature, nothing could move, nothing could be sold, nothing could be transferred. Everything remained frozen. I suddenly understood why nobody had called me. They weren't grieving. They were trying to find another way. The attorney opened another file. I think there's something else you should see. Inside was a stack of emails, printed, organized by date. The first one came from my father. Subject: Remove Daniel from everything. I felt sick. The attorney remained silent while I read. Dad wrote that I hadn't been part of the family for years. He claimed Grandma had changed her mind shortly before passing away. He even suggested that I had manipulated her. None of it was true. The next email came from my mother. Surely there's a way to replace him as trustee. Another one. We'll pay whatever legal fees are necessary. Then Ethan. He's basically dead to us anyway. I stopped reading. That sentence hurt more than I wanted to admit, because it wasn't written during an argument. It wasn't said in anger. It was typed calmly, thoughtfully, as if I truly no longer existed. The attorney quietly gathered the papers. I'm sorry. I looked out the window. Chicago traffic moved below us like nothing had happened. Thousands of people living ordinary lives. Meanwhile, mine had just been turned upside down. For the next 2 weeks, I said nothing. I returned to work. I attended meetings, signed contracts, smiled at clients. Nobody knew that every evening I drove home and reread Grandma's letter. Part of me wanted to call my parents, to scream, to demand answers. Another part remembered something Grandma used to say. People eventually reveal who they really are. You don't have to force it. So I waited. Then one Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Dad. I hadn't heard his voice in months. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Silence. Then he cleared his throat. Daniel. It sounded strange hearing my name again. I need a favor. Not, how are you? Not, I'm sorry. Just, I need a favor. What kind of favor? You need to sign some probate documents. I looked across my office. The attorney's words echoed inside my head. They're finally calling. I don't think so. His tone changed immediately. Don't make this difficult. I almost laughed. Difficult? You told everyone I was dead. Another long silence. Finally, he said, Don't be dramatic. Those 4 words erased every ounce of guilt I still carried. I'm not signing anything. I hung up. The next morning, my mother called, then Ethan, then Dad again. 9 calls before lunch, 23 messages. Each one sounded more desperate than the last. At first they demanded, then they negotiated, then they begged. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded every voicemail to the attorney. He replied with one sentence. They're panicking exactly as your grandmother predicted. Predicted? I immediately called him. What do you mean? He sighed. Your grandmother believed your parents had already promised the house to Ethan. I froze. What? They listed it as collateral. For what? He hesitated, then quietly answered, A business loan. My stomach dropped. Ethan started another company? The attorney nodded. It failed. And now the bank expects repayment. Everything suddenly clicked. The fake kindness, the sudden phone calls, the desperation. They didn't miss me. They needed me. Without my signature. The trust remained locked. Without access to the trust. They couldn't refinance, couldn't sell the property, couldn't save Ethan. For the first time in my life, the golden child couldn't be rescued, and that terrified them. 2 days later, as I walked out of my office building, I saw 3 familiar figures standing across the street. My father, my mother, and Ethan. They had driven nearly 5 hours just to find me. My father stepped forward. His voice cracked. Please, we need to talk. I looked at the folder under my arm, then back at the people who had declared me dead. For the first time, they looked afraid. I said nothing. I simply waited. Because after 3 years of silence, it was finally their turn to explain.